Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and iTWire video. I'm joined today by Chris Tysoe. He is an experienced senior graphic designer at Strategic Brand Design, which also counts iTWire as a very satisfied customer. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here. Thanks, Alex.
Now, I thought I'd start by asking you if you could please tell us what sparked your love of graphic design and the programs that you must have used all those years ago. What did you start working with?
Sure. Well, I guess it was born out of frustration initially. Years ago, I was in a sales role selling sports equipment, and performance-wise, the product just wasn't cutting it, and it failed as a shelf appeal item. So I thought, I could probably fix this. So I ended up buying myself a second-hand Mac, taught myself how to use Adobe software, and started to develop really cool graphics for the point of sale and packaging to promote the product. So that's where I started.
Sure. I mean, for me, it was when I was a child or a teenager, and it was in the days of DOS, and there was a program, I think it was called Ventura. It might have even been some other one, First Post or First Publishing, and it could do this Mac-like font, and it had a graphical user interface. But yeah, but you went straight for the Mac. You went for the real thing.
That's right. It was at its very vintage stage, but it was it did the job. It was good.
Yeah, amazing what they could do all the way back then. And of course, we're going to talk about in a moment. Well, even right now, last month, I watched some of the Adobe Max 2020 conference, and like all conferences, of course, it was virtual, like the meeting we're having right now. But I was blown away by some of the things that they showed. I mean, there was incredible stuff there, and anybody can watch it at adobe.com/max. There's, days of conference there. The keynotes are just incredible. And I was, as I said, I was blown away by what Adobe's ultra modern software can do. So what has impressed you that you can now do on the latest versions that you couldn't do or couldn't do easily before? And what have been the other most profound changes for you as a professional graphic designer over the past 20 years?
Sure. There's been major changes, but I guess definitely animation and video tools have definitely come a long way in the last 10 years at least, but they're simple to use and they require little or no coding. So that's a good thing because it can be a bit of a headache for designers. But you can build a fully functioning e-commerce site within an hour, and some site builders I suppose, employ artificial intelligence to build the site for you. So you simply type in your preferences. It could be a look or a feel or a content that you want, and the site constructs it before your eyes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So even though the tools are there to make your job more efficient, they can be challenging. Once upon a time, a designer just wore the one hat. Was stuck in the corner of the room, but now you're expected to be across a multitude of programs. So lots of programs.
So your CV highlights a range of software programs, which we were just speaking about, that give the graphic design or the designer so many different hats they can wear. So that's illustration, animation, photo editing, web design, video editing, desktop publishing, and printing. And so, based on what you told us before about getting into the packaging design area, what's a bit more about your personal history and experiences over the past couple of decades?
Sure. Okay. So, yeah, as I mentioned before, my passion for design developed it came from a need, essentially, to generate sales and improve the user experience. So I started off in print advertising, point of sale and packaging. And from there, I moved into recruitment and assisted various marketing teams with their print and digital requirements.
Yep.
So at present, I'm focusing on delivering online promotion and advertising for a range of clients, including my longtime partner, iTWire. And
Absolutely.
These are all produced with the latest Adobe CC applications and Microsoft programs.
Sure. And one of the trends on the horizon is augmented reality, and we're going to get those glasses which will overlay graphics over the reality that we're seeing. So, how this is going to be done in an elegant and sophisticated fashion is yet to be seen. We've already seen Adobe with its Aero software that's described as letting you build, share, and view immersive AR experiences. And obviously there are other solutions as well, including the Apple glasses that will come. Have you had a chance to play in this area as yet? And if not, I'm guessing you soon will. What are your thoughts about AR and the future of how that's going to change design? I mean, how do we design for that virtual reality?
That's a very good question. It's a good point. Look, I agree with all that. This application is very exciting. It takes full advantage of the layer effects in Photoshop without the coding. So basically, it brings your photos to life. I haven't had the opportunity to experiment with the program as yet, but I can see this gaining a bit of traction in the next 12 months for sure.
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess as Apple gets closer to launching its own augmented reality glasses, Apple normally teaches the rest of the industry how it should be done. There's always a bunch of weird experiments. People like Google and Samsung had VR and, I guess the beginnings of AR type technology, which they've abandoned. I mean, Google's Glass is now only an enterprise product. So we're sort of still waiting for that gap to be filled. But once it does, it's going to take off like a rocket, as many things Apple does. Now, it's fascinating to look at the fonts and design from decades or even centuries ago. You see all sorts of, you can immediately see some of those old newspapers and old snake oil salesman type images. And it's so funny to see how the design was back then, which was obviously state of the art back then. Now, your designs on your site look absolutely up to the minute. But, looking back at the decades and centuries design, is there any that is a favorite time period for you?
Oh, look, I'm a bit of a fan of the retro era, Alex.
Yeah.
I think it's clean lines. Look, and today a lot of it's present in the current trend. So, in interior design, wall art, it's everywhere really. Yeah. The era really set the benchmark actually for the way good design resonates now. It's functional, it's minimal, and it's got those nice clean lines.
And is the retro era the 70s or which time period is that?
Oh, well, I'm talking, it could be right back through to the 20s, 30s and 40s.
Sure, yeah.
I'm thinking more 50s, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, this last century, the last century obviously was when we had a lot more advanced technologies than we had in the 1800s, for example, when we had a lot of those snake oil type ads and some of the very old-fashioned fonts. But the last 100 or so years certainly have been a fascinating time.
But now, a lot of the Christmas cards now that you see have that sort of retro or that old style font.
Yep.
That's quite common now. So it's interesting to see how it all coming back.
Yeah, what's old is new again.
Exactly.
Now, obviously we can't not have an interview without talking about COVID. How can great graphic design help a company to refresh the way it's seen by the world and help it craft its messaging in a world where COVID is still normal and the post-COVID world, we hope, is coming soon?
Good question. Look, I think to maximise audience reach, you need to have effective design and the right choice of medium. So they go hand in hand to promote any business, really. Certainly online sales have risen enormously during the pandemic, and that'll continue. There's no doubt about that. As the consumer becomes a little bit more comfortable the way they do it. So business, I think, needs to start looking at their websites really. For example, how are they viewed? Are they up to date? Are they user friendly and they're welcoming? That's the thing. So these are the things where the design will refresh and improve the way I suppose businesses are seen in the world.
And of course, one of the things, I'm part of ASCA, the Australian Seniors Computer Clubs Association. I'm on their board, and one of our fellow board members is Scott Holly, the CEO of the Centre for Accessibility, and he's legally blind. And I remember, during the 2000 Olympics in Australia, there was a legally blind person who took the Olympic Committee to task because the Australian Olympic website, that was advertising the games, wasn't designed for people with disabilities, with accessibility issues. And so some of those companies actually will need your help or those of other designers to make sure that their sites are fully accessibility compliant as well.
Spot on. That's a major issue with website development, and that's come a long way. You're spot on, and that was brought about exactly by that issue with the Olympic Games.
Now, in your experience, what attributes would a client be looking for in a designer when commissioning work?
Look, I think any core attributes, Alex, that you find in any partnership, really, reliability. So you've got to be able to perform the work, as you say, when you will. And you've got to know when it's the right time to offer, I suppose, advice and communication. So keeping the lines open, keeping the client informed at all stages of the design process, and then also flexibility, because these days there's no such thing as a 9-to-5 job.
No.
You've got to be open at any call.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as I mentioned before about augmented reality, I mean, we're expecting, the rumors say Apple AR glasses by 2022, 2023. So it should be everywhere by 2025. But by 2030, I always like to ask about the future and what we might see by 2030. I mean, we might have wireless brain interfaces like in the Matrix that bypass the eyes completely and create images in the mind. I mean, that also opens up all sorts of things that I talk to security guys about, hacking those brain interfaces and ransomwaring your brain. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But what do you think design might look like in a world where you've got not just AR, but, interfacing directly to your brain? I mean, I might be a few decades too optimistic about that happening by 2030, but if you were to stretch your imagination, what do you think design might look like then?
Yeah, look, I don't think you're far off, actually, Alex. I think you're pretty close. Look, technology will empower the consumer. There's no doubt about that, to make more informed choices. And I definitely think they'll have more control over the design process. So rather than that forced mentality of what you see is what you get, it'll be hopefully right at their fingertips. So hopefully that doesn't put me out of a job either.
Yeah. I mean, I'm imagining it might be design that automatically adjusts to what your brain patterns are and how you think as a person. I mean, it's all very sci-fi sort of stuff. But yeah, some of these things, I mean, journalists have already been put out of a job by some AI that can write sports reports and write earnings reports very easily. And there was even some writing that I saw from an AI that was really eloquent and nice, and you wouldn't have been able to tell that it was from a computer. So, maybe
a tax return, was it?
Don't know if the Luddite, Mr. Luddite was right, but I think we'll still need human ingenuity for some time yet.
For sure.
Now, my second last question as we get towards the end of the interview is simply to ask, what's the best piece of advice or pieces of advice that you've received in life to help you get where you are today?
I think fairly simple. I think my old man once said, the harder you practice, the luckier you get. So I think it's all to do with work ethic in general, Alex.
Sure.
So the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah,
that's my
good advice. Yeah, well, a lot of young people are not working as hard as they could these days. They have that term snowflake. So I mean, plenty of young people do, but I think there's a wake up call coming for society if we keep going down the path.
Perhaps.
We're going down. Yeah, we're just going to wait and see. But I have faith in humanity. I know some people have lost it, but I maintain the faith. Now, what is your final message to iTWire viewers and readers, and to your current and future customers and partners?
Thanks, Alex. Look, I think embrace technology and all that it brings, all the opportunities. But for those of you out there looking for your next promotion, for someone to look after that, please reach out to me at strategicbranddesign.com.au for all your graphic needs.
Sure. Well, Chris Tysoe, strategic senior graphic designer. We love your work at iTWire. We thank you very much for that. We hope that some people out there watching want to get in contact with you, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Fabulous. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Bye for now.